How much do we truly know about the opioid crisis? Do we comprehend its international implications? Today we are taking a deep dive into the unseen, yet profoundly impactful opioid crisis. It's not just a problem confined within the borders of a single country or region. This crisis is a silent pandemic, creeping into every corner of our globe, leaving a trail of devastation and heartache in its wake. Imagine a disease that affects millions worldwide, with no regard for age, race, or socioeconomic status. The opioid crisis is that disease. It's an insidious epidemic that doesn't discriminate, infiltrating communities from the bustling metropolises of wealthy nations to the remote villages in developing countries. This crisis is not merely about addiction. It's a complex web of issues, intertwining public health, law enforcement, and international relations. It's a battle fought on multiple fronts, and one of the most critical battlegrounds is our international borders. Our borders have become the front line in this fight, with international border services working tirelessly to stem the flow of opioids. They are our unsung heroes, facing daunting challenges and risking their lives daily. Their stories, their experiences, are a stark reminder of the magnitude and complexity of this crisis. From the snowy expanses of the Canadian border to the sun-baked deserts of Australia, these agents are our first line of defense. They grapple with the constant influx of opioids, the insidious tactics of smugglers, and the heartbreaking consequences of a single slip-up. Their mission is not just about law enforcement. It's about saving lives, protecting communities, and stemming a global catastrophe. The opioid crisis is more than statistics and headlines. It's about real people, real lives, and real communities. It's a crisis that transcends borders, touching us all in one way or another. And it's a crisis that demands our attention, our understanding, and our action. The opioid crisis is not just a national issue. It's a global catastrophe. What does the front line against the opioid crisis look like? It's a question you may have asked yourself. The answer lies in the tireless efforts of Border Patrol agents and drug enforcement officials, the unsung heroes in this battle against a global menace. Imagine a chess game where the pieces are constantly in motion and the stakes are life and death. That's what the daily grind is like for these dedicated men and women. They stand vigilant, using their skills and intuition to intercept the flow of opioids across borders. Every day brings new challenges, new threats, and they face them head-on, steadfast in their resolve. The accounts shared by these heroes paint a vivid picture of the battlefield. One agent speaks of the adrenaline rush when a drug bust goes through successfully, the satisfaction of knowing that countless lives have been saved from the devastating grip of addiction. Another talks about the frustration when a smuggler slips through, the determination to learn from each setback, and the resolve to do better next time. The dangers they face are real and ever-present. From high-speed chases to potential encounters with armed traffickers, the risks are high. Yet these brave individuals don't back down. They understand the importance of their mission, the lives that hang in the balance. They know that every intercepted shipment, every single pill seized, is a victory in this ongoing war against opioids. But it's not just about the busts and seizures. It's also about prevention and education. Many of these agents work closely with communities, spreading awareness about the dangers of opioids and helping to foster an environment where addiction has no place to thrive. In the midst of this crisis, they stand as a beacon of hope. Their dedication, their courage, their relentless pursuit of justice, these are the qualities that define the front line against the opioid crisis. They are the shield that guards us from this unseen enemy, and for that, we owe them our deepest gratitude. Every day, these brave individuals risk their lives to protect us from this unseen enemy. What happens when opioids cross borders? From the bustling streets of Shanghai to the quiet corners of rural Appalachia, the opioid crisis is a global affliction. It's not just a regional or national issue, it's a worldwide epidemic. The illicit trade of opioids has woven a complex web of devastation, linking countries and continents in a shared struggle. Imagine opioids as invisible invaders, silently traversing international borders, unhindered by passport controls or customs checks. They infiltrate societies, inflicting havoc on communities, families, and individuals. These invaders are not soldiers or weapons, but tiny pills and powders, small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, potent enough to take a life. Drug enforcement officials around the globe have shared their frontline experiences. They paint a grim picture of powerful international drug cartels who exploit weak border controls and corruption to smuggle opioids into countries. These officials work tirelessly, often risking their lives to intercept these drugs and disrupt the supply chain. Yet the scale of the problem is immense. For every shipment seized, countless others slip through the cracks. The ripple effect of the opioid crisis extends far beyond the user. It erodes societal structures, impacting education, employment, healthcare, and law enforcement systems. In some communities, a whole generation is growing up in the shadow of opioids, their futures uncertain. The economic toll is staggering. Every year, billions of dollars are drained from global economies due to opioid-related healthcare costs, lost productivity, and criminal justice expenses. Meanwhile, the price of human life, lost to this crisis, is incalculable. So what happens when opioids cross borders? They ignite a cycle of destruction that reverberates around the world, leaving no country untouched. The opioid crisis is a global crisis, and it demands a global response. The opioid crisis does not recognize borders. Its impact is felt globally. This is not just a fight for individual nations. This is a fight for humanity. It's a fight we must face together, united in our resolve to end the devastation. The global impact of the opioid crisis is a stark reminder that in this interconnected world, no one is immune. Why is it urgent to address the opioid crisis now? Our world is locked in the grip of a devastating opioid crisis, a crisis that is not just knocking at our doors, but has already crossed the threshold, invading our homes, our communities, and our lives. The urgency to address this crisis is not just important, it is a matter of life or death. Every day we are witnessing an alarming surge in opioid-related deaths. In the United States alone, every 24 hours sees approximately 130 lives lost to opioid overdoses. That's nearly 5 lives extinguished every hour. Across the pond, the United Kingdom is grappling with a similar crisis, where opioid-related deaths have reached a record high, making it the worst affected country in Europe. But the crisis isn't confined to death statistics. It's also about the living, those who are trapped in the clutches of addiction, and the impact on our healthcare systems. Emergency rooms are being inundated with overdose cases, stretching resources thin and compromising the ability to provide crucial services. Hear the words of Dr. Sarah Johnson, a frontline healthcare worker. Every day in the ER, we fight a battle against opioids. It's heartbreaking to see so many lives ravaged by this crisis. We're doing all we can, but the reality is, we're overwhelmed. This crisis is urgent because it's not just about the present, it's about safeguarding our future. Consider the children orphaned by this crisis, the families torn apart, the communities left to pick up the pieces. The long-term repercussions are dire, and the societal cost immeasurable. So why is it urgent to address the opioid crisis now? Because every moment we delay, the crisis deepens. Every moment we wait, another life is lost, another family is shattered. The time to act is now. Tomorrow may be too late. Can international cooperation make a difference? This thought provokes us to look beyond borders, beyond our individual nations, and see the bigger picture. The opioid crisis isn't a single country's plight, but a collective human one. It transcends borders, affecting people from all walks of life, in every corner of the world. The power of cooperation is a formidable one. It's the force that binds us together, paving the way for collective action against this crisis. From the far-reaching corners of Australia, across the expanse of the Americas, to the bustling cities of Europe and Asia, cooperation is key. Imagine the strength of a unified front, a global alliance against opioids, the pooling of resources, sharing of intelligence, and a coordinated strategy to stop the trafficking of these dangerous drugs. This is not a dream, but a reality that's unfolding. We've heard stories from drug enforcement officials, tales of successful joint operations that have dismantled illicit opioid networks. They speak of the power of collaboration, the potency of shared goals. From these stories, we learn that unity is not just a concept, but a compelling force, a tool that can change the course of this crisis. In the words of a high-ranking official, when we stand together, when we act as one, we are stronger. We have the power to disrupt and dismantle these networks. That's the strength of cooperation. But the potential impact of increased cooperation is even more profound. It's about fostering a global understanding, about acknowledging that this crisis affects us all. It's about sharing best practices, learning from each other, and supporting one another in this fight. As we look to the future, the path is clear. We must foster stronger ties, build alliances, and unite in our efforts. Every step forward, every victory against this crisis is a testament to the power of cooperation. Remember, the opioid crisis isn't a single country's battle. It's a war we're all fighting. And in this war, cooperation isn't just our best weapon, it's our only weapon. Together we can turn the tide against this global crisis. What does the future hold in our fight against the opioid crisis? As we venture into the unknown, it's crucial to comprehend that eradicating the opioid crisis will not be a sprint, but a marathon. A race that demands persistence, innovation, and above all, cooperation. We've heard from those on the front lines, the Border Patrol agents, and drug enforcement officials, sharing their stories, their struggles, and their hopes for a future free from this devastating epidemic. One agent, a veteran of 20 years, spoke about the importance of advanced technology in this battle. He shared his vision of a future where state-of-the-art surveillance systems could detect drug smuggling attempts before they even reach our borders. Then there's the drug enforcement official who passionately talked about education and prevention. She believes that the real battle begins in our schools, in our communities, where we can reach out to the younger generation, educating them about the dangers of drug use and providing them with the tools to make informed decisions. Another strategy, suggested by a seasoned officer, involves strengthening international relations. More than ever, global cooperation is necessary to choke off the supply routes, to share intelligence, and to aid in the prosecution of international drug cartels. In the words of a high-ranking official, we can't just build walls, we need to build bridges. This sentiment underscores the importance of treating the opioid crisis not just as a law enforcement issue, but as a public health crisis that requires a holistic approach. A strategy that includes not just apprehension and prosecution, but also rehabilitation and reintegration. These are but a few of the potential strategies and solutions for tackling the opioid crisis. Each one is a piece of a larger puzzle, a step towards a future where opioids no longer pose a threat to our society. The road ahead is long and fraught with challenges, but as we've seen, our border services are more than up to the task. They're committed, they're passionate, and they're ready for the fight. The fight against the opioid crisis is far from over, but there is hope on the horizon. What can you do to help in this fight? That's a question we all need to ask ourselves. It's not just about the law enforcement officers on the front lines or the healthcare professionals working tirelessly to save lives. Each and every one of us has a role to play in combating the opioid crisis. First and foremost, education is key. We need to understand the scale of this crisis, its root causes, and its devastating impact on individuals, families, and communities. Knowledge is power, and it's our first line of defense against this unseen enemy. Reading up on the subject, attending seminars, webinars, or workshops can be a good start. There are countless resources available online, from detailed reports by international agencies to informative articles and documentaries. Even a simple Google search can lead you to a wealth of information, but don't stop at educating yourself. Share what you've learned with others. Talk to your friends, family members, colleagues. Use your social media platforms to raise awareness. Remember, the more people know about the opioid crisis, the better equipped they will be to make informed decisions and to help those in need. Supporting those who are on the front lines of this battle is another crucial step. Our law enforcement officers are working day and night to prevent opioids from crossing borders and reaching our streets. They need our backing, our appreciation, and our understanding. Similarly, healthcare workers are dealing with the aftermath of the crisis, providing treatment and care to those affected. They too need our support. Donate to hospitals or organizations that are at the forefront of the opioid crisis. Volunteer your time and skills if you can. In addition, Advocacy is essential. Get involved in campaigns that push for stronger laws against drug trafficking, that lobby for more funding for research and treatment, that demand better support for those battling addiction. Your voice matters, and it can make a difference. Finally, remember that compassion goes a long way. Addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. Treat those struggling with addiction with empathy and kindness. Offer help when you can, and encouragement always. We've provided a list of resources in the description below for further information and support. Check them out and share them with others. Remember, this is not a fight we can afford to lose. The opioid crisis is taking a toll on our societies, on our economies, and most importantly, on our fellow human beings. But it's a war we can win. It requires the efforts of every one of us. It requires resilience, determination, and unity. So let's step up. Let's do our part. Let's join hands in this fight against opioids. Because together we can turn the tide. We can make a difference. We can save lives. The opioid crisis is a war we can win, but it requires the efforts of every one of us.